So let me clarify the Ilya no threats at featherweight thing. I have been a huge advocate recently about Ilya moving to lightweight. I think he's really ready for it, especially after how his fight with Max Holloway ended. Um, but while I do say there's nobody that could touch Ilya, there are a few potential people. It's the same way I talk about Tom Aspinall. Like I said, when John Jones retires and Tom gets the unified belt, Tom's gonna rule that fucking heavyweight division so damn hard. And even though I say that, I did bring up a couple guys who have the potential to give Tom something. I'm not gonna say a loss, but something. And those two guys I mentioned, or three guys I mentioned, were Volkov, Cyril Gahn, and Almeida, for their own separate reasons. Um, I still stay true to that. And the two people that I say could still give Ilya problems at featherweight if they were ever somehow able to get a title shot with how cluttered the UFC, title shot pathway has been. Those two guys would be Yair Rodriguez and Movsar Evloev. Um, I've been talking about Yair. I said that Yair had a perfect lineup straight to the belt against Ilya, straight to a title shot against Ilya, if it wasn't for him not knowing how to fucking grapple and lose to Brian Ortega the way he did. And I made a whole video on that. You could go check that out. I made a video on that. Movsar Evloev. I never talked about Movsar. He's kind of been a little bit under my radar, but he's there. I've been watching him. And, of course, he fought against Aljamain recently and beat Aljamain in what I would call a robbery. I had Aljamain winning. And that's from an unbiased point of view. I'm just saying I felt like Aljamain had a lot of fucking ground control, and maybe like near the end of every round, Movsar was able to flip it and end up on top. And I think even though Movsar was able to flip it at the end of almost every round, I don't think that gives Movsar the fight. I think Aljamain was a bit better on the feet and better on the ground. I think Aljamain had, a lot better positioning and just overall a lot more ground control in those better positions. He almost fucking suplexed uh, Evloev at one point. That was fucking cool to see. I think Aljamain just won that fight. But for whatever reason, they gave it to Evloev, and that's fine. At the end of the day, I know there could be a lot of fucked up decisions and seemingly wrong decisions and controversial decisions, but a decision is a fucking decision, okay? It's just what it is. The judges made a decision, and somebody won and somebody lost. Evloev won, so there's some talk about him fighting Ilya, and it's not not an outlandish, take that Movsar has a shot at fighting Ilya and has a shot at beating Ilya. But that's why I say it's like the potential thing. I think with these guys, just like the Tom Aspinall situation I just brought up, it's kind of like these are the guys that have just under a 50% chance of winning. And there are a lot of other guys in that division who have less than a fucking 30 and less than even 20% chance of winning. Okay, but Yair has a chance, a close to 50% chance because of his kicking style. And Movsar has a close to 50% chance because of his grappling. I think if Movsar is able to withstand the tight and skillful boxing and almost inhumane power of Ilya and somehow get Ilya to the ground, then he could have a good chance at bringing Ilya to a decision, to a decision win. Because I've seen Movsar's wrestling and his grappling against Aljamain, and it looks really clean, beautiful, well executed, and just overall exemplary grappling. Exemplary grappling. Fucking tongue twister. But yeah, Movsar is really great on the ground, and I think that gives him a great chance of having a competitive fight with Ilya on the ground. On the feet is a different story. And while Movsar um, can possibly bring Ilya to the ground and keep the fight on the ground. I would predict that it's not possible. I think Ilya has good enough grappling to keep the fight on the feet. And if the fight stays on the feet, like I say in every video involving Ilya, Ilya only needs 3, 4, 5 clean ones, 3, 4 clean ones, 3, 4 really clean punches to the chin, and whoever's in front of him is going to get cracked. Evloev will likely get cracked if he stays on the feet, you know. So, I would put money on Evloev staying on the feet. You know, I think Ilya beats Evloev. As great as Evloev is on the ground, I would say the same shit for Aljamain. And I mentioned an Aljamain versus Ilya fight and how good that would be and how great Aljamain is at taking the back and keeping the back and shit like that. But you know, Aljamain would still have to survive being on the feet with Ilya, and I don't think anybody really survives that. I really don't. You know, only Islam, and maybe some lightweight fighters, depending upon how Ilya's power translates to lightweight. But I think Islam right now is the only guy who I can be really, really sure about winning. I think Islam will definitely beat Ilya, and that's the only guy I think beats Ilya. I don't even think Arman beats Ilya because Arman's too short. So the two of those guys get into an exchange, and Arman's gonna have to eat a couple clean ones, and a couple clean ones from Ilya is gonna fucking knock him out. So I think Islam has the reach and the height to be able to establish a good sense of range and find an opportunity for a really lethal kick that puts Ilya out, you know. So I think Islam's the only guy who could do it. Evloev is a great grappler, and he had a really great fight against Aljamain. But as good as his grappling is, his stand-up has to be a whole lot better, and I don't think it really is. Evloev has great striking. I just think you got to be almost like a prime Cody Garbrandt, where you're just fucking bobbing and weaving every fucking minute, just bobbing and weaving, throwing your fucking head around, trying not to eat like more than 3 clean shots from Ilya. That's how you got to be. That's how Volk tried to be. That's how Max tried to be. And that's how the guy who is going to beat Ilya will be. If he's short. If he's tall, then that's a different story. You have enough height to you know, even use your striking to keep your chin away from Ilya. And that's what I think Islam will do. But as for the shorter guys, the guys who are closer to 5'7", you know, I'm talking like 5'8", 5'8" motherfuckers and stuff like that, those people got to bob and weave. They got to throw the fucking head around and shit, you know. So, yeah, it's a dangerous fight for Evloev, and I think it's a fight that Evloev will not win if he somehow is able to fight Ilya, because I think by the time Evloev gets close enough to a title shot, Ilya will be in the lightweight division. So, I don't know. If this fight happens. I think Ilya still wins it. So, yeah, let me know what you think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. But most importantly, subscribe. I love you guys, and I'll see y'all in the next.